Hello and welcome to this conversation. And this is something, this talk that I get to, or this individual I get to speak with today, Jacqueline Perez, who goes by Jack, is an amazing woman who has done so much for women of any age, but particularly women who are in that midlife area, whatever you define midlife as. And so I want to talk about one of Jack's newest endeavors, in addition to all the great stuff she's done with Cool Life, which is her online platform. She has recently, at the age of 60, you and I are both the same age, Jack. That's pretty cool. She discovered the transformative power of words, and especially those kind of words that rhyme sometimes. So after a month-long sojourn in Istanbul, Jack is a global traveler, she felt compelled to explore life's intricacies stanza by stanza. I just love this. So through her significant life moments, as we all experience in our life, she began crafting poetry that really spoke to her and was her expression and connection with some of the things that she was going through. She talks about her vulnerability directly with the reader. And I love this QR code by QR code, often hiding in her closet to read the poems aloud. So her book is Metamorphosis in Stanzas. It's a debut poetry book capturing themes of love, loss, and renewal, while also talking about the beauty of change. So I love this. And Jack, I want to talk about your book, your poetry, and then also about your Cool Life platform. So we're going to cover a lot of different stuff in here. So Jack, welcome.
Oh my God, it's so exciting to be here, Marty. So thank you so much for hosting me on your show. This is thrilling.
Well, it's my privilege, and I try to work with people who provide services for those going through divorce or those post-divorce. And let's face it, divorce includes a whole lot of life challenges, a whole lot of changes, and for a lot of women, it's occurring as they get into that midlife area. The gray divorce is the most rapid rising sector of the divorce population, so of the married population. So, Jack, tell us a little bit about why poetry.
Well, I have to admit, it's a little weird because I didn't choose poetry, Marty. It chose me. I think I have been an essay writer for years. I have written under the umbrella of Jack's Smack, and dare say there are probably hundreds of essays out there. And the topic that I usually write about is midlife, the opportunities, the challenges, everything from empty nest to, dry vagina and everything in between, right? And my style is typically sort of tongue in cheek, irreverent, self deprecating humor. And I honestly thought that that's what I was going to do, Marty. I was going to write a compilation of essays, but I couldn't write that book. That book wasn't happening.
Right.
And then I hit, for whatever reason, a maelstrom of things that happened to me kind of all at the same time. And I know I'm not alone. I know this time of life leads us to some of these situations. So I had a career shift, which was not expected and kind of set me back. I also had a significant relationship dissolve, a lifetime friendship that dissolved. My baby sister moved away from me after basically planning our entire lives together. And this was not the direction I thought things were going to go. My realization that I had lost my identity once my son moved away. And that took a while for me to understand that that's what was happening. I kind of forgot who I was for a little while and ended up a little depressed, low level depression for a long period of time. And so when I got back from Istanbul, I think, the time change, the drastic lifestyle change, all of it kind of brought me to my knees, and I didn't know how to process it outside of therapy. And I did do therapy, but I also then decided to express my thoughts and feelings, to share it with others. And honestly, the older I get, the less words I want to use. And so poetry is so succinct, right? Every word counts. And I found that to be an interesting intellectual and emotional challenge. Can I get across my thoughts, my feelings, what I want to share with the world, how I want to help other women not feel so alone? Can I do that with just 4 lines in a stanza rather than 200 or 300 words in a paragraph? Can I do
Exactly.
that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I love this idea. Poetry, it's interesting because when I was in high school, we did poetry. And I remember being really kind of caught up in the whole word smithing aspect of poetry. I mean, we do it when we write, but not to the extent, because you're right. We can do a whole sentence, right? What did you think was the biggest challenge for you in what am I going to call it? Like reducing that thought into those words. How did you do that?
Through iterations, honestly, right? I mean, iterations. Sometimes it was as basic as getting out the thesaurus and saying, okay, synonyms for this, or getting on Google and saying words that rhyme with blah, 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 right? Because I chose rhyming poetry for this book. Not all poetry has to rhyme. And as a matter of fact, I think, maybe some people think that rhyming is, I don't know. I don't know what people think about rhyming. I think rhyming is difficult because you're constrained. You have to go with the sentiment. You have to get the information across, but then you also have to find a word that rhymes. I think that adds an extra layer of complexity. But yeah, I used thesauruses. I used Google. I used iterations, just like writing it, rewriting it, all of that stuff. I don't know there any other way around it, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm not that clever to just come up with them just willy nilly. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And how did you get the idea for each stanza, for each poem? How did you generate that?
Well, honestly, it was just what was happening to me at the moment. I remember one morning thinking, how do we do this? How do we stay in long-term relationships? Right? I mean, how do you keep a relationship that's 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 40 years alive? When the lure of greener grass might be there.
Right.
And before I know it, I was writing a poem about the gardens we make. One morning I woke up and I realized, I don't know, I was really grieving the loss of a past lover, I guess. I don't know how else to say it.
Yeah.
And out came the illusion of choice, because I think sometimes we think we have a choice about who we're going to fall in love with or who we're going to choose. And sometimes the heart wants what the heart wants, and we end up in a situation where we're like, this didn't turn out so good.
Right.
And so it was depending on what I woke up with that morning, whatever heaviness I was dealing with. I even talk about the loss of a lifetime pet, right? I had a pet for over 18 years, and I know a lot of women our age.
Right.
Pets. And these pets are, if you got your pet when your kid was small, right?
Yes.
To add a pet to the family, and the kid left behind the pet. But guess what? That pet's not doing so well, or it's aging, and you've got to deal with that loss. So even that, I even write about that. So
yeah. And I haven't had the chance. I just got your book. I haven't had a chance. It hasn't got here. Amazon is a little slow on the delivery right now. But tell us, what do you expect, or what do your readers tell you? Because I know you've had some wonderful reviews on the book. So tell me, what do your readers tell you that they get from your poetry, or from the experience of reading through the book?
If I had to say one thing, they find themselves in the work, and it helps them feel heard and not alone. And I think that if I can do that, if my work can help a woman go through this metamorphosis, because that's what it is. I mean, we're all transitioning. Once we get to that menopause, it's almost like we've got that new cocoon and we're coming out, and what we come out afterwards is, who knows what kind of wings we're going to have. But if I can help women know that they're not the only ones in that silly little cocoon, that, what I mean? Like that they're not alone,
Right.
that what is going on for them. And here's the thing, that one of the reasons I run Cool Life and my mission, and this ties in very well with why I wrote this book. It's more about normalizing aging, Mardi, right? It's more about bringing it forward, that what you're feeling, what you're thinking, what you're experiencing, what you're contemplating, what you're grieving about, it's all normal.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just love that, because you're right. A lot of times we have this sense that as we get older, we're supposed to have the answers. We're supposed to know what we're doing. And that if we are going through some challenges, we really feel like we're the only ones dealing with this crap. And in reality, it's most of us that are dealing with this crap. And whether, like you say, whether it's a relationship with a partner, whether it's a friendship that changes, whether it's, I'm starting to, as I'm sure you are, lose friends. And maybe they're people you haven't talked to for years, that you've moved away from your hometown. But then you hear that they've passed, and it's just, all of a sudden there's that sense of, well, why didn't I reconnect with them? Why didn't I keep in touch? Why didn't I? And I think sometimes we don't realize as we get older that things don't always get easier.
No, they don't get easier. I don't think they get easier at all. I think we become more resilient.
Yeah.
I don't think life gets easier at all. As a matter of fact, I think every day has as many great moments as negative moments, right? It's just, it's all the viewfinder. And I've had a couple of those recently where I have to remind myself, okay, this isn't what's happening to you right now. It's, you get to decide, how do you want to react to what is occurring around you? You want to cry? I kind of want to cry, but is crying going to help? Maybe you should table crying for later and deal with what you have to deal with right now. And so I've been doing a lot of that, reminding myself that at the end of the day, stuff is going to happen.
Yeah.
And then we get to decide how we want to behave. And honestly, that directly impacts our health too. So don't even get me started on that, right?
Right. And I know, I know that when I interviewed you for the podcast, gosh, that's been a couple of years ago now. One of the cool things, and it still sticks in my mind, is you said there's a whole lot of living between diapers and depends. I remember that quote that you said, and I've used it a couple of times. I always credit you with it. But that's really, we don't stop experiencing life, and we don't stop having challenges just because, like you say, we go through menopause. But it is a chance to recreate ourselves. And this poetry, poetry is such an intellectual but really emotional type of vehicle to get messages across. So I love that. I do want to ask you a question though. Today, everything is, we market. You're an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur. We have to do our marketing. We are told it's got to be video. It's got to be less than 30 seconds. It's got to be like, get them right now. It's got to be visual. It's got to be big. It's got to be like, that's what we're told, right? That people have no attention span. Everything's got to be online, and everything's got to be visual. How do you react to that as an author, an artist, a poet who is not using that digital medium?
That's a great question. Kind of a little bit like hold my beer. You know what I mean? Like I get that I'm fighting against, an entire world of ADHD brains. I think we have completely rewired humanity's brains over the last 20 years, completely, including mine. And what I'm hoping for is that this will allow women an excuse to just slow down a tiny bit. It's almost meditative. If you think about it, it's like I've written 30 poems in 30 days. Each poem is pretty tight and succinct. Not going to take you long. And if you're the kind of person that says, I need it to be fed to me. I don't want to read it. I'm not, I don't know that I'm going to, get it or understand what you're saying. It's poetry. I can read it for you because on each page, I've included a QR code. You mentioned earlier that I recorded these puppies in my closet. So it's not a professional recording in a studio with, the full headphones or whatnot. But honestly, I think that adds to the vulnerability and the connection and the intimacy that I think I can share with another woman. And even though I'm not in the room with you, you're just going to have to trust me when I tell you, just do it. Just put your camera up to one of those QR codes, get to that Google Drive and hit go and follow along with me. And I really believe that some of the words in this book will help be a good solve and soothe throughout many of your transitions and many of your moments so that you don't feel alone.
Yeah. And I love that option. So I think for me, when I get the book, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the poem and then I'm going to think on it. And then I'm going to listen to you speak it through the QR code that's on the page. And then I think that then I'm going to be able to have a little debate with myself if I sense something different. But I really love the idea of using even those poems as almost like a journal prompt, like reflecting back on what the poem means to me. I can see that would really help me deepen my understanding of each one of the life issues that your poems address.
I think that is beautiful. And I wish that I had thought of that when I wrote the book, because then I would have included some journal prompts maybe at the end of each chapter. But you know what I'm hearing? I'm hearing next edition. Because believe me, I think that this book has many opportunities for women to get journal prompts and to really dig a little deeper into some of these universal themes that we're all experiencing. Yeah. And we're all connected through. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I know that you, I know we're going to just take a brief second, away from talking specifically about the book, but I want to talk a little bit about Cool Life. And if you could maybe share how some of that Cool Life stuff that you do maybe kind of set you up to be in a great place to be able to contemplate and think on this and create this amazing metamorphosis and stanzas that you have written.
They are intrinsically linked, Mardi. Absolutely. So I've been working on Cool Life now for the last 6 years. It's a digital platform. It's a website, like you said, and it's dedicated to normalizing aging. And I do it through experts. So I have over 65 thought leaders globally. You are one of them. You talk about gray divorce, which is a huge topic for women, right? We are the leading population handing out divorce decrees on January, right? Women over 50.
Yes.
It seems to be the thing we like to do after we're 50 and in January. Here you go. And so through that process of becoming really, inundated and in depth with all of the trials and tribulations and the possibilities that women want to hear about, that also fed me, right? That I also started to realize not alone. It's funny because I wrote the book so you wouldn't feel alone, but Cool Life has helped me feel not alone.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I want to definitely tell people, I'm going to put all the contact information for Cool Life in there. And I think once you get Jack's book, once you take a look at Jack's book, once you see what it is that she offers, it's just going to be a natural for you to go to the platform. So that's why I wanted you to Jack, just to share a little bit about that. Do you have your copy of the book there with you?
Of course. It's like attached.
I know. Would you be willing to honor us with a reading of one of your stanzas that you would like to share?
I would love to. So I'm a performer from way back when. If you offer me to perform, I'm never going to say no, by the way, Mardi. Never.
Wonderful.
But I have a question for you. I have a poem called The Gardens We Make, which is about tending long-term relationships. And I have one that's a little darker called The Illusion of Choice, which is more about the bitter part of love and not getting what you want. Which do you think your audience would prefer?
Would love to hear the one about the gardens. I'm sure the one on choices is really great too, but the one on gardens, for some reason, at this time of the year, just thinking of a garden is just a positive experience for me. So
That's fair. Okay, so this one's called The Gardens We Make. Is there truly greener grass beyond, or does it flourish where tender hands have drawn? Love, long nurtured, may thirst in drought, but how does one discern when to pull out? Do we exchange one sorrow for another shade, or linger in the gardens we ourselves have made? Perfection's but a fleeting dream we chase. Yet how do we endure, find strength in love's embrace? The call of the unknown, a siren's sweet song, promising new fields where we might belong. How do we stay when the wilds seem bright, when the hearth of the known grows dim to sight? Yet roots entwined can brave the fiercest gales through barren seasons where love prevails. Is the grass greener, or is it just this, that it blooms best where devotion persists?
oh my gosh, I love that. Jack, that is amazing. I
Yeah,
can just see that whole gardens and the greener fields and the roots entwined. That's a beautiful picture. Yeah.
thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I think it's hard. I think it's hard for us to stay in those relationships after 25, 30, 35 years. Are you a fan of Yellowstone? Did you see that show?
You know what? That's one of my things on my binge watch list. So I haven't got there yet.
So I'm not going to ruin it if I tell you there's a couple on that show and they have such an intense relationship. And you see it and you're like, wow, oh, where's that intensity coming from? And then you realize that after, X amount of years, it is very difficult to maintain that level of intensity. And you have to find other reasons to stay in the relationship. You have to find other ways to feel loved and show love, because that chemical stuff just only lasts for so long. We're just not designed to carry it around with us forever.
Right. And I think that, we could go into a whole big, long story about why I think so many relationships fail in the first 3 years. And I think it's because it is that intense emotional, and nobody's bothered to talk about the nuts and bolts of how this relationship is really how are we actually going to tend the garden? Because there's a lot of work to keeping that garden going. So
there's so many weeds coming up left and right. Is anyone who's responsible for that stuff? Who?
Exactly. Jack, it has been fantastic to speak with you. Your book, can you hold it up again for us?
Absolutely.
Metamorphosis in Stanzas by Jacqueline Perez.
Yes.
On Amazon.
What I was talking about, each page has that QR code.
So wonderful.
So you can hear me in your ear if you want.
And it's on Amazon now. Please reach out, get it. I'll make sure that the link for the book is in the show notes. And also, if you're a woman of any age, but particularly 40-ish and up, connect with Jack on Cool Life and read the articles by the amazing group of women she has contributing, and just embrace yourself at whatever age. Embrace yourself, take on new challenges, and see the amazing things you can accomplish if you put your mind to it. Jack, thank you so much for being here today. I've really appreciated this opportunity to speak with you.
I'm honored. Thank you so much, Mardi.